Afternoon, everybody. Uh, I I'm just working on some things like just scheduling. Nothing really hard body like any kind of tools or anything like that. Just fed the pets and whatnot. Dog just got his second time out. Might have a third. I just make our walks very long now to just ensure that he gets all his stuff out. But it's story time, and this one isn't necessarily my granddad. It's back to me more so than my grandfather. Basically, I wanted to talk about my deployment. Um, I went to Italy as a station area, like pretty much U.S. to Italy. We staged there, and that's where like we did missions and whatnot. Nothing too crazy. It was a training operation kind of deployment for our group. Um, Deployments are for pretty complicated, a lot of moving pieces. But basically, I'm more so not really honing in on the operation itself, but more so honing it on the experience of it because it was not good, not good at all. It really showed me a lot of things about the guys I worked with in a light that I was just like, I kind of see now where this is at. And this is kind of my pet peeves when it comes down to police and even military again. Like, actually, this is where it was bred, is in the situation with the deployment. So, we were tasked with a mission in Africa. It was nothing crazy. It was just basically go there, teach them some basic tactics and whatnot. I'm not gonna really say the country itself, but I'm just gonna say it was a police force, and we basically were just teaching them rifle basics, grunt tactics, infiltrating buildings, pretty much CQB, if I'm saying it right. Don't hit me on acronyms. I hate acronyms. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you got to be in the military to understand the true hatred of acronyms that you will develop over the years. Anyway, though, we were teaching them basic stuff. Now, for me personally, I was always against the whole idea because I was just like, why are we teaching police officers how to use rifles when that's not what they normally use? And the thing about it is, I don't know U.S. standards because those are a little different ball game, and that would require me to really sit down and study the intricacies. And a lot of it is always going to be overhead view, never in depth. So, no real point in trying to really understand their systems that in definitely rather just experience it and calculate from there. But I got to know a bit about this police force as I was on mission. It was a month, a little bit more of us being in their country and teaching them. Living in a tent was fun. No, it wasn't. Basically, though, they didn't know anything about rifles, period. And this wasn't their first time getting taught by Marines. So it was kind of like a moment of, what's the point of this if they're not even using these enough to retain the knowledge? If anything, this is kind of a waste of time. Now, there was another group doing the military side, which had more justification in my mind than the police side. If anything, if we were going to train the police side, just train them on the basic grunt tactics. We don't have to train them on rifles because they don't use them. Why would I train you how to use something that you're never really going to use? Or if you do, it really isn't going to be recent. It's your last time using it in training isn't going to be recent enough to compensate for the situation you're in. You know, if your country's in that big of a situation. Granted, is it something you ought to know? I would say, but here's the thing: that's a big point. Is that that's their government's idea of how to do these things. Like if they want their police force to be trained on rifles more, that's something they ought to do with their military to their police. Now, the whole point of the mission was friendly relations, but it was a very odd experience because we were supposed to build good relations with the African country we were in and conducting teaching missions on. And my my Marines that I was with, the ones that I was with, and not my Marines as in like under me, like the guys I was with, like my dudes, they were acting like full races, like full races. Like, I don't, like, they don't comprehend they're on a deployment and in another country with completely different rules, completely different standards. Everything's different. And they're acting and treating these 30 to 40-year-old African police officers like true dirt, like real dirt. And I'm just kind of sitting there because I'm not going to do that junk. And there was a few others who were just looking at them like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, because the whole point of the mission is friendly relations. Now, granted, we're teaching them in their police force that does not use rifles on regular. The only time they use them is when we pop up, and that's it. So they don't really retain any of it. They probably shoot their pistols more often than they shoot a rifle. And that was actually shown a little bit. If I remember correctly, we did do a pistol qualification. And their pistol shots were a lot better than their rifles, because their rifle shots were oof. And I just say, like, a lot of the commentary, a lot of the interactions, like, I watched as the police force lost motivation to even train, to the point where certain smaller groups of them were just outright not listening, outright not doing what they're being told, outright disobeying. They just don't care, because when you treat people who are not a part of your faction as if they are, and your faction is known for being overly aggressive, very malicious, and even backstabby as hell, well, yeah, it's not going to translate to the other faction that is not a part of you, that does not hold those standards, period. And it became prevalent because, yeah, they were getting more and more like reluctant to even listen in on what we were saying. And I myself had to sit down with them after hours when I was like off watch and just talk to them about it, because talking to my fellow Marines was a dead end, because they were that thick-headed to where, like, anyway, it is actually kind of, it was kind of hard for them to argue with me on it, because it was just like, yeah, why are you treating these guys like this? And it became more prevalent. It really was racism. I was the only exception because I was a fellow Marine, but them, no. So they went full, like, just outright. And again, we go back to what I said in the previous one. You don't have to say racist slurs for someone to notice how racist you are, because it became more and more prevalent how they tried to use the excuse of them not being at the standard of the US, which the idea is friendly relations, that these are different countries, and we're trying to showcase to them that, hey, we're here to support you, help you, we'll even train you a bit, we'll teach you what we know, okay? If you make the people you're there to build a good relationship irritated to the point where they don't want to listen to you, they don't want, I who did not care about the mission because it wasn't combat, I didn't care, I didn't like it, I didn't want to be there, I didn't want to teach nobody nothing, because I was like, I didn't sign up for that. But here I was anyway, talking to them because I needed that mission to go smoothly so I could go home. I was just like, why are we messing around right now? We're not back in the States. We're on deployment. We're on mission. Could you get your heads out of your ass? Sorry, I will never forget. Now, were there some accidents on the African parts? Yes, but minuscule, because of the fact that these are the students. We're the instructors. We should have the most level head compared to anybody else in the room. And in all truth, there was a massive amount of problems. But we're almost hitting that 10-minute mark. But again, let it be known that, again, this is just one of the other examples of the blatant racism, because there was no real excuse for this. There really wasn't. Like, how are you going to go to another country and act like that to the point where, like, they don't even want to listen to you? And that's the whole reason why they're there. You know, it's just one of those moments where it's just like it's too obvious.